What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, part of OneMindSyndicate, and today I'm back to talk about Warhammer 40K. In this one, I'm continuing the new lore from the Era of Ruin, where we have a short story that goes by the name of the Carrion Lord of the Imperium, and that talks about pretty much the Custodes after the end of the Horus Heresy. So if you guys don't know, there is a new novel after the whole Siege of Terra novels, and it is jam-packed with new lore. And I've been kind of touching base on what this is all about, revolving around the Custodes. So I'm going to go ahead and link a video that I talked prior about how the Custodes view the Space Marines and the Primarchs after everything that happened during the Heresy. But today, let's go ahead and take a look at what the Custodian Diocletian has to think about everything that has happened so far. So without further ado, let's dive in. Diocletian goes deeper into the palace. Deeper, through the doors that no human has ever seen in generations. Past members of his own kind, those that share his age, his experience, and those they've created in time since. Those that have never heard the Emperor speak in life, those that know only him as the God Emperor in death. Some address him by the rank of Tribune, some call him Dio. Down, deeper, through the doors, the secret doors, the ones behind those renowned gateways decorated in trappings of glory, past the graven image of the immortal Emperor, a skull-faced warlock on a mighty throne, eternally alive on the edge of death, imposing in his majesty. Through that final door, which opens only to droplets of a tribunal's blood, and whose impenetrable locks take an hour to unseal, inside this innermost sanctum, where the architecture of the walls is uncomfortably organic, strangely spinal, Diocletian approaches the golden throne, such as it is, and his kindred, naked, all but for their cloaks, loincloths, and black helms, move aside in his honor. He ascends the steps, slowly, not without reverence, but without the abject worship expected by the people of the Imperium. They would be horrified by its absence, but then everything about this place would horrify them. It is why they will never be allowed to know of it. At long last, Diocletian stands before his king. He looks past the hanging wires that resemble intestines, and the preservative mist sprayed in air in 9-second intervals. He looks past the blood bags and the vitae packets linked intravenously into that thing on the throne, which is just a chair compared to the great and grand artworks. A throne without the capital T that makes it both a curse and the salvation of its species. He looks at the revenant husk of something that was somehow once, and yet still is, a man. Something that shouldn't be alive, and arguably isn't by any mortal measure. Something tortured by its own impossible continuation, physically starved, and psychically bloated on the feast of souls it is forced to devour every day of its endless and agonizing existence. Or is it forced? Maybe it craves this. Maybe it hungers. Diocletian removes his helmet and kneels before his king. At first he says nothing, his head hanging, his eyes closed. Here, of all places, there's no hatred of the Primarchs, no anger at the Legion's betrayal, no bitterness at humanity's self-destructive nature. The weight of the centuries lies heavy on Diocletian's shoulders. Here, in these quiet seconds between a warrior and his liege, he feels the weight of his failure to protect this man, the knowledge that had 10,000 done what was needed of them, then the Emperor would still be with them. Their king would still be a man, not a skeleton silently screaming into the midnight reaches of the night, just to give humanity a few more millennia. Diocletian lifts his gaze, and he stares into what's left of a king in his features, and in that moment, they appear as two sides of a coin, created and a creator, an ageless countenance opposite a living carcass. Each breath he takes draws the scent of the throne into his body, a stinging reek of overworked metal, unable to entirely mask the fainter smells of alchemical solutions and biological waste. Beneath it all, and worst of all, is a wisp of decay. Diocletian rests his spear before the God Emperor's feet and asks him a question. My king, do you dream? And with that being said, guys, this was the end of this very depressing and dour passage. So in all these images of the Emperor, we see him as a god, the pinnacle of humanity, the hope and dreams of all of mankind. We see him a spectacle, a golden warrior sitting upon a massive golden throne that will leave humanity to its final reaches in space to become perfection, to reach that golden age. And in reality, it's the opposite of that. A skeleton, a corpse on a chair, being kept alive by wires, preservative mists, blood bags, and for what? So that humanity can cling to what it used to be, so that humanity can become nothing. Humankind is suffering, and this is just the beginning of the era of ruin. We still see what humanity goes through in the 41st millennia, where they're being ripped apart by the witch, the heretic, and the Xenos, and still we see that maybe they should have let humanity die. Maybe the Emperor, who finally met his match against Horus, should have died and should have let humanity die alongside with him. In the previous videos, I talk about how the Custodes are kind of in that whole state where they're like, I kind of told you so. Like, they knew that the Space Marines weren't needed. They knew that the Primarchs weren't needed, and yet the Emperor created them. And because of this, he has put himself in this position. And because of that, he's also put himself and humanity in this position of an undead state. A slow, withering, painful death, but at the same time, not fully dead themselves. And it's just sad to see that this is what the Imperium has become, all because of the hubris of a man who never wanted to be God, and yet was one himself. So let me know your thoughts down below. Again, guys, I greatly recommend you guys read this novel, or at least get the audiobook over on Audible, because it really opens up your eyes to the brutal reality of what happened after the heresy. Ever since the Horus Heresy, the Siege of Terra novels were finished, people were wondering, is this it? Is it just going to be novels set in the 41st millennia, 42nd millennia? But no, there is a ton of new stuff to explore between the end of the heresy and the Warhammer 40K as we know it. So again, guys, thank you for listening, watching, and subscribing, liking, commenting, sharing, all that jazz. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one. It's been the Sound Alchemist, part of OneMindSyndicate, and I'll catch you then. Peace.
Oh, I did the